Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Episode 5 of Strictly Sports. We are here on the Monday after the conference championship win by the FAU Owls. What a win this weekend over UAB in the Conference USA Championship. With me today, I have JP Acosta, C.J. UAB.
Conference USA Championship.
Conference USA Championship, yes.
Man, did we won a national championship?
Yeah, right. Not the national championship, but the Conference USA Championship. Second time in 3 years for the FAU Owls. Once again, I have JP Acosta, C.J. Uri, Jacob Heston here.
Henson.
And we are here to talk about
Jacob
all things
Heston.
sports today.
I wish Jacob Heston was sitting next to me.
Yeah, right. So today we're going to talk all things FAU. We're going to talk about the championship game. We're going to talk about Lane Kiffin's departure to Ole Miss, as well as the future coaching options for FAU. We're also going to talk NFL, NBA, college hoops, as well as FAU hoops, which we have not really talked about very often on this show. And then we'll get into baseball at the end, as the winter meetings are currently taking place in that sport. So let's start with FAU. So, JP, you were the color announcer with Sawyer Stoltz, the amazing Sawyer Stoltz, in the game this weekend. What were your biggest takeaways from that championship win by FAU?
Oh, man. There was a lot of things to take away from this FAU massive victory, 49-6. There's a lot to be taken away from FAU. But I'm going to start with the rushing offense. UAB came into this game ranked 5th in the nation in total rushing defense, allowing only 92 yards a game. FAU had 286 rushing yards on the game.
I mean, not even close.
It's not even close to the average for UAB. And that's credit to Lane Kiffin. What they did was they tried to avoid being in situations where they could allow that pass rush to get to them. Because that UAB pass rush, despite what you saw on Saturday, is very good. But what they did was they had quick runs and they ran tempo. They run quick plays. They run the ball up the middle, get back to the line. They run another rush play, and then they pull it for a play-action pass. That's how D'Angelo Antoine scored on a huge 75-yard touchdown that really just broke the game wide open. And once FAU was up like 21 or 28-3, or no, it was like 35-6 at halftime, at that point you knew it was over because UAB could not score to keep up with FAU's defense.
Absolutely. So, CJ, what about you?
Biggest takeaway for me, I mean, the rushing offense was huge. We kind of struggled with the rushing offense midway through the season. We had B.J. Emmons out, and I felt like we were leaning on Robeson a lot. But in the last couple of weeks, the running game has picked up. It looks as if Motor's back. Obviously, he's over in Buffalo, but it looks like we got explosiveness back, like when Motor was here. B.J. Emmons had 2 touchdowns. But he only had 40 yards. Who really carried the offense was Davidson, who had 11 carries for 128. So that's huge that you can have 2 running backs in there and they all can kind of do it all. They all catch pretty well out of the backfield too, which is huge for Robeson. But for me, biggest takeaway, Chris Robeson, he was 17 for 37. That doesn't sound great, but he had 267 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. We're going to need him at his best against SMU. It should be a shootout. It looks like the offense is firing on all cylinders, but that's 6 points for UAB, huge for the FAU defense. They're going to have to keep SMU in check on December 21st.
Absolutely. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, so we looked completely dominant from start to finish that game. Our offense ran all over them and passed all over them. The defense held them to no touchdowns, only 2 field goals. Even special teams had a blocked punt for a return for a touchdown as well. So just completely dominant. Really excited for us to go against SMU. See if our defense can keep momentum and hold people less than what was the average, like 24 points this season, something like that.
Yeah, right around there.
UAB's defense was like their biggest strong point this year, that's for sure. And 49, they hung 49 on them.
Right. I mean, that's my biggest takeaway for the game. I mean, FAU went in there in a very emotional game, knowing that the rumors around Lane Kiffin are swirling around the team, and they came out there and just dominated on both sides of the ball. The defensive side was incredible. Glenn Spencer, who's now the interim coach for Lane Kiffin, has done an unbelievable job on the defensive side. There's going to be a lot of guys leaving, though, after this year, so we'll get into that later. But, Jacob, you provided a perfect segue into this. The Boca Bowl is this weekend. FAU will be facing SMU this weekend with Glenn Spencer as the interim coach. It doesn't look like FAU is going to hire anyone before that. Lane Kiffin will not coach. There have been some speculation around Kiffin coaching one more game, but he's already in Ole Miss and happy over there. So let's preview this SMU game here. CJ, what are you looking at here when we're going into this SMU matchup?
So originally I was a little upset that the boys weren't traveling
Same.
to either
I'm
Tampa
heated about it.
to I don't even know,
Louisiana?
New Orleans. I wanted to get on an airplane
Anywhere.
and go somewhere fun and go watch a football game. I was totally ready to book whatever ticket needed to be to be booked. But regardless, SMU, this is one of the best opponents that FAU's played in a bowl game in their history of football here. And SMU was ranked a few times this year.
Yeah, they
or
were number 25,
They were number 25, number
yeah.
24 for consecutive weeks.
Yep.
They were like they were undefeated until like week 10.
And then they lost
Yep.
to Memphis, and that was a shootout. They only lost by 6 points. So this is huge for FAU, not just for this season, not just for recruiting, but for the future. This is such a big game for them to win for when they're thinking of conference realignment down the road. They need to be looking at conferences above them, mainly the AAC, and say, look, this is who we can beat. We're hanging with your best teams in your conference, and we're beating them. So I'm looking forward to it. I know I'm going to be there. I think it's going to be a shootout. SMU can clearly put up 50 points at a moment's notice, and so can FAU. So I'm hoping that Glenn Spencer can get the defense rolling like that. But as we're seeing on social media, on Twitter, these guys are ready to fight for Glenn Spencer. And there's about 20, 25 players that are online right now saying Glenn Spencer should be the coach after the game regardless.
Right.
So there's a lot of storylines going into the game, and I'm super excited for it.
You know, at first I was really disappointed that we were going to be playing in the Boca Bowl again, considering the fact that if you were college football, especially the people who make the bowl games, you have one particular game that I really wanted personally, and that's FAU versus Miami.
Oh, that would have been
Louisiana
great.
Tech is playing Miami in a bowl game this year, although it should be FAU, the Conference USA champions. You have the storylines there, you have the talent, and that's just a perfect marketing bowl game. But once I sat back and thought about it, would we want to face a 6-6 Akron team that barely made it, or do we want to face a 10-2 SMU team who, as of right now, is 5th in the nation in scoring, and they average 43 points a game?
And that's a real test for this defense.
It's going to be a test for the defense because this is going to be a lot more spread out offense that we face. They throw the ball a lot. They throw the ball 48% of the time to compare to 51% the run. That's really balanced, but that's not a lot like every other like top team that is in the nation. Now, they average 43 points a game and are 12th in the nation in passing yards at 309. But I think FAU's defense and creating turnovers, which was big in the UAB game. We blocked a punt. I think we had 2 interceptions, maybe 2 or 3.
Yep.
But considering that we lead the NCAA in turnover margin and SMU is at plus 0.4 right now, which is 32nd in the nation, it's going to be a test for the Owls defense, but I'm sure Glenn Spencer's going to have them ready.
I think the days of FAU being a double-digit win team or even a 9-win team playing in Akron are over. I feel like this is, them playing the Boca Raton Bowl a little bit disappointing, but they're still scheduling a team that was ranked. They're going to only be shooting for that every year now.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest deal here, and you brought it up, CJ, I mean, this is a big game in terms of FAU trying to move up in conferences because one of the biggest problems of trying to get people to these games is that, these are Conference USA teams. Not a lot of people are interested. I mean, if you start beating a team like SMU who's in the AAC, which is a pretty reasonable conference for FAU to try and get a bid into, that's where UCF is, Memphis, Houston, all these interesting kind of FAU-level programs. And so if you beat a team like SMU, I say, hey, now we have the talent that can maybe beat a team in the AAC, making that bid a lot stronger. But one thing that people don't talk about, maybe the football program is there for the AAC, but due to college regulations, you have to have all of your programs at the standard to move up, which may be a problem for some of the other sports. So obviously football is deserving, but maybe basketball, baseball need to kind of progress a little bit.
Baseball's ready to play in the SEC or the
when you
ACC.
look
I
at-
say, yeah, because
when
they
you look
schedule
at the
Miami,
other
FSU every year.
When you look at the other sports teams we have at FAU, they're all really good.
Right.
Like, I was on the call for FAU's men's basketball game against Canisius. That team is ready to compete. It was a really close game. Dusty May is having that team ready to prepare to compete in the Conference USA level. both soccer teams, men's and women's, are phenomenal.
Right.
The women's soccer team.
I'm not denying the talent.
No,
I'm just saying,
yeah.
you need to build a resume to be able to move up.
There's only one team on campus right now that I feel like is not ready to make the move, and that's basketball. Baseball can play against whoever. They've beaten SEC teams, they've beaten ACC teams, they've beaten anyone that's
Florida
anyone
in the college baseball tournament. They were playing right there with them.
Yep. So they're ready to take the step. I think the football team right now is ready to take the step in the AAC. There's teams in the AAC that aren't as good as FAU as it is right now, but it also comes down to an attendance and alumni thing. So
yeah, that brings me back about saying some AAC teams aren't as good as FAU. SMU has struggled with some lesser opponents this year, like Arkansas State, who's in the Sun Belt, I believe. They'd snuck by Tulane, Tulsa, a few other schools. So I'm feeling really confident in our defense the 21st. We forced 3 turnovers against Ohio State week 1. I feel like people forget about that.
Yeah, they do.
And our defense has really gotten a lot better throughout the season. So I'm feeling really good about our defense. I'm actually more worried about our offense more than anything. So there's been a little inconsistency sometimes, and I wonder how they're going to do without Lane, and that play calling shouldn't be left to Charlie Weiss Jr. But I'm excited to see how we do.
Agreed. So after the Boca Bowl, we're going to have to decide who the next head coach is. So let's go back to the end of the season. Lane Kiffin is now the head coach of Ole Miss. He agreed to a 5-year, $21 million contract to coach there. He's going back to the SEC where he's coached previously. He was the offensive coordinator for Nick Saban in Alabama. He also coached at Tennessee for a year, obviously has NFL experience as well. But we all knew, or we didn't really know when he came here, but Lane Kiffin's entire purpose of coming here was to rebuild his resume. And that's now been proven that he's left after 3 years. You know, all thanks to Lane Kiffin. We're very thankful. He came here, 2 championships in 3 years. There's not much else you can ask. He put this program on the board. His Twitter was popular, and he was getting exposure on there. Love the referee memes, man. Like, those were great when he had the meme about the refs. But, you know, this is a guy who came here, had a resume, built up the FAU program for some future head coaches. But I can't blame Kiffin for leaving. That was a job he absolutely should have taken. But let's just discuss, why did Lane Kiffin leave and feel the need to go to the SEC instead of building this program up here like he said he was going to do?
There are about 5 million reasons why Lane Kiffin walked out of the door from FAU. But the other thing is, you know, he's done a lot for the program. And not saying that Lane Kiffin got unbelievably cocky while being here, but he probably got a little annoyed that a guy of his caliber who's coached in the NFL, who's coached at USC, coached at Alabama, is getting a program that was 3-9 3 straight years to a double-digit win team, and he shows up and there's a championship in your own house and there's no one there. No one's there. That becomes demoralizing, especially for a guy of his skill. So the second someone's going to be knocking on the door that can even provide him 40,000 guys in the stadium every single week, let alone 64, which is what Ole Miss is going to give him, he's gonna walk. And I'm not even Harrison Bryant as a football player is probably better than anyone that's on Ole Miss, just as from a football playing standpoint. Right. But it's the fans, it's the money, and this was a stepping stone. And I'm very happy that he was here and he's paved the way. This is now a very attractive job. I'm not as upset as I was in the moment, as long as FAU can make a proper hire. And if it's not Glenn Spencer in house, and I hope he stays a defensive coordinator, but it needs to be a head coach or an offensive coordinator from a Power 5 school that is ready to make
Willie Taggart. I really like the idea of Willie Taggart. I think what FAU needs to look for, the number one thing, the most important thing, you need to be able to recruit here. That's the number one thing. You need to convince high-caliber players FAU is the right place to go.
Yep, and Willie Taggart is in the same situation as Lane Kiffin was when he was brought to FAU. He got ran out of Florida State just like Lane was kind of ran out of Alabama and Tennessee and USC. He was ran out the NFL. He needed to go somewhere to rehab his image and try to build back up a program to make himself look better for potential suitors. I think Willie Taggart can do that here at FAU. He's a phenomenal recruiter. The things that happened while he was at Florida State, some of it are beyond his control. Florida State has a lot more problems that are above the head coach that he just can't control. So I think Taggart would be a great hire here. I think the reason Lane Kiffin left is because there's a cap to how good FAU can be. At its peak, at FAU's best, they can be the best Group of 5 team, but they can only make a New Year's Six Bowl. You're not going to compete for a national title at a non-Power 5 school. At Ole Miss, despite they're not having a lot of good years. They don't have a lot of talent there. With the right talent and the right coaching, which I think Lane Kiffin is, you can compete for a national championship because you're in the SEC.
Right, at least there's the potential for that.
I'd say Ole Miss has the talent for sure. I mean, they've had some, they've got some unreal guys that come out at the school. I mean, look, DK Metcalf is performing at a very high level right now, and he was a second-round pick. Second round. I think he didn't fall. Yeah. He fell out of the first. No, I think they have all the tools there to be a winner, but you look at the division. They have Alabama, Auburn, and LSU, and Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher there. I mean,
have fun, Lane.
I mean, we can in like a few minutes. Let's go look at his schedule, but I'll let Henson speak.
So honestly, my favorite coach I want to go after is someone not many people are talking about, Butch Jones, who is not even a coordinator at Alabama. He took Central Michigan, who is not ranked. He got them ranked. He took Cincinnati, got them ranked. And he got rained out of Tennessee because he went, I think, 4-6 or 4-7, 4-8. He had a bad loss at Vanderbilt at home, which is like probably
that solidified it.
That's why he got fired. But he's taken some mediocre teams and made them play really well. Aside from that, if Glenn Spencer is not staying here and for whatever reason takes a head coaching job at another conference school like UTSA, who I know is really wanting him, Jim Leavitt from FSU would be another great hire. He found the program at USF and got them to number 2 in the country in 2007 and kept them in the top 10 for like 3 years, I think, and they would fall in and out. But taking a team like USF and start their program and then build them into the top 10 and solidify them there, I think is really impressive. Also, I mean, he's a defensive guy, so if we have him, then there's no reason to have Glenn Spencer as well. So.
Right, and Jacob, you were talking earlier, we were talking about maybe FAU can turn into a school that gives these coaches that need to reestablish their images a chance to, and they did that with Kiffin for 3 years.
Yeah.
Maybe they just have a revolving door of coaches every
like
3
a last
years to get someone else.
for coaches.
If coaches are coming here and they're making a 3-year pit stop and they're going to provide 2 championships in those 3 years, every 3 years, I don't care if you come and go. Yeah. It doesn't matter to me.
We just want the win.
Come on down, give me 2 championships, leave, let's get the next guy in.
But whoever comes in and coaches at FAU, they're going to have a lot of talent still left here. Mm-hmm. Talent that can immediately be the favorite in the Conference USA. I mean, you got Emmons who's going to be coming back. You got Davidson and McCammon. McCammon didn't even play a lot on Saturday. He was one of the lead backs when Emmons got hurt. You got maybe Frank Gore Jr. is going to stay committed to FAU and come to FAU. On the defensive side, you got Koran Hafiz, the safety. You got Achilles Leroy, who leads the team in tackles, and he's a junior. You have a lot of talent still here. So really, it's just.
Well, you were talking about. So, who are the seniors that are leaving for next year? The important players that we're going to be missing.
The important players. We'll start on offense. I think Pico Harrison, Tavares Harrison, is gone. Junior Diaz and Brandon Walton, to the starting center and left tackle, are both going to be gone. Obviously, we know Harrison Bryant is going to be leaving for the NFL draft. He's the best tight end in the country. On defense, I believe Noah Jefferson, Ray Ellis, and Tim Bonner are both going to be gone. Rashad Smith, who is completely insane at linebacker, is going to be making plays in the NFL. I believe Miko Magnet, is going to be leaving. And I can't remember if there's another player. I'm trying to remember who was all at the senior night.
Generally, I mean, we're losing a lot of talent.
We're losing a lot of talent.
Defense, receiver.
We're losing a lot of talent, but we also have a lot of guys who didn't play who are going to be really good.
If you're a head coach, if you're someone that's looking at the FAU job, or FAU's hired whatever firm for a nationwide search, the biggest thing you're looking at right now is, I'm going to be inheriting a never-before-used $90 million athletic facility connected to the stadium.
Right next to the stadium.
And I'm also inheriting a quarterback who is finally hitting his stride in college football, I'm going to have 2 more years with. Chris Robeson is top 30 in every key statistic in the country. That is hard to come by, to walk into a program and you get a quarterback that's going to tear apart the conference that you're in and also keep you in games that are out of conference. I fully believe that when they go to Minnesota, it's going to be a close game. Do I expect to beat Minnesota? No, they're going to be ranked in the top 10, top 12. JP does, but I don't.
I called it. Next year, FAU goes to Minnesota to play the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and I said I believe FAU will go into Minnesota and beat Minnesota.
Big claim right there.
I think
They almost
FAU
won
has the talent to beat Minnesota. I just think Minnesota, this was their year. You know, they had all their seniors. They were primed for their run, and I think that run was it for their seniors. All their seniors are going to be gone. So I think FAU has the talent to compete and beat Minnesota.
Well, it's also playing on the road.
Yeah,
PJ
I think FAU has
PJ
the
Fleck,
talent.
right?
Yeah,
PJ Fleck. There's no way that he's dropping that home game. I just hope
Right.
they're competitive. It doesn't like the 4 straight touchdowns in the first quarter against Ohio State. I mean, we clawed back after that. We scored. I think it was like what was it?
We
17
outscored them 21-17 over the last three quarters.
I just think, listen, Minnesota almost got to the Big Ten championship, so it's a big thing to say that, FAU, I agree with you that we might have the talent to match them going into next year, but it's also big to say, we're going to beat a team that almost played Ohio State in the Big Ten championship.
I think with the talent that we have here, plus the talent is going to be leaving Minnesota, like Antoine Winfield Jr. is going to be leaving. You have Tyler Johnson, their standout wide receiver, who's going to be leaving. I think this is the prime moment for FAU to make a statement. You know how Group of 5 teams, they have that statement win in their like run where they're like, hey, we're the best Group of 5 team in the nation. I think this is coming up. This is the statement win by FAU here on the road in Minnesota. I think this has got to be the statement win for the Owls.
Well, we will see. That will be an interesting topic to talk about come August. But now we're going to get to the college football playoffs. This was an amazing weekend of championship games. I was correct. I said Oregon would beat Utah. I said Oklahoma would get the 4th spot and that Georgia would lose. So Oklahoma is in the 4 seed now in the college football playoffs, and they will get the nice privilege of facing LSU in the playoffs. And then Ohio State gets to face Clemson in the first round. So if it were me, I'd have to say LSU will obviously beat Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma actually is a better matchup for LSU. Or not better matchup for LSU, but I would say it's going to be a more competitive game than, say, if a Utah rolled up in there. I don't think Utah would have been able to compete offensively with LSU. Probably would have been a blowout. Maybe Oregon would have been able to stay in the game, but Oklahoma is probably one of the only teams in the country that can keep up with LSU offensively with Jalen Hurts and all that Big 12 offensive talent with Lincoln Riley. And then if I'm looking at Ohio State and Clemson, you got to go Ohio. This is a really tough game because Ohio State, to me, they looked a little bit overrated against Michigan. Justin Fields, I know he had some big throws in that game, but he also missed a few passes as well. He didn't look very fine-tuned in that game. And then you look at him against Wisconsin, Ohio State struggled a little bit out of the gate. So I'm a little bit more hesitant right now saying that Ohio State's just going to walk in and beat Clemson. But I have to respect what they did this year. Listen, Clemson had a schedule that was really easy. There's no one in the ACC. They dominated the ACC championship game. I just look at strength of schedule. Ohio State had to face a lot more higher talent. I think they'll probably pull through, but watch out for Clemson.
Look, Clemson is the team that nobody wanted to get because as much as they've played an easy schedule, and we can say they played an easy schedule, but they can't control that. They can't control if Miami or Florida State is good or not. But remember, these are the defending champions. And a lot of that team that's still there was the same team that boat raced Alabama last year. So while I'm not going to choose Clemson, I think I'm going to choose Ohio State. It's going to be a really close game, and it's going to be a really fun game because Clemson is a team that nobody is going to want to play.
For me, the thing with the Clemson-Ohio State game was Wisconsin last week. What was they were up 21-7.
No, they were down. Wisconsin had them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Wisconsin was up 21-7. If they have a bad half like that against Clemson, that 21-7 will be more like 28-35-7.
That's true. They got to be
because
ready.
Clemson's that good, and it's really hard to come back on a Dabo Swinney team like that. I still think Ohio State rolls, but I think it's going to be way closer than people think.
Well, Clemson's also, with their lack of schedule, they're pretty well rested, so we don't know if they're going to come out and be more surprised at the sheer talent that Ohio State has, or if they're going to come out like they did against Alabama and just run all over them, pass all over them. I'm going to go with Ohio State as well, just because they've really proven themselves. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if Clemson kept it within a one-score game the whole time. And also, between LSU and Oklahoma, I think LSU wins. Big.
Yeah, LSU.
We all got LSU. I'm
LSU.
assuming, yeah.
The problem with Oklahoma is they're going to score 35, 40 points. They're going to give up 50.
Yeah.
And especially against that LSU offense that completely outclassed Georgia. And Georgia's one of the best defenses in the nation.
They went into Bama's
they,
house and put up
They went
40.
They went to
Georgia
Atlanta.
was bad this weekend,
and
man. Like,
they
were bad.
completely destroyed Georgia. So LSU is hitting their stride. Well, I'm saying that like they have.
Talking about
I think they're
Georgia, where do
peaking.
we think Jake Fromm stands? Because he did not impress me at all this season.
Look, at his best, I said Jake Fromm was Alex Smith at his best. He's not impressive.
There's a place for quarterbacks like that in the NFL.
He's an Alex Smith. He'll make his throws. He'll get the ball out to his playmakers. But everything has to be absolutely perfect around him for him to succeed.
I think he's Alex Smith at his ultimate peak, if anything. I mean, seriously, LSU's defense isn't all that great. Kyle Trask and the Gators went into LSU and put up like 36 points. Bama put up 41. They are giving up points to schools. The fact that Georgia got
LSU's
steamrolled.
defense at one point was ranked 53rd.
Exactly, and they didn't even have to travel. Georgia didn't even have to travel. They don't. It's right
Well,
down
like
the road.
10 minutes.
Athens
They travel
to
like 10
Atlanta.
minutes.
It's like a 20-minute drive, and they literally got steamrolled. I don't know what's going on over there in Georgia. They're going to have a bunch of draft picks.
Every big game they play. Every big game they lose.
They should have never let
Unbelievable.
Justin Fields
I mean,
walk. I'll
it's
tell you
just
that
crazy.
much.
That is funny in hindsight to look at.
Should've
Georgia
never-
could have had Justin Fields, and they stuck with Jake Fromm. But
Oh, man.
looking at this bowl game schedule, and especially the New Year's Six, there are some intriguing matchups here. But if there's like one lopsided, there are a couple of games where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this game is either going to be a blowout or nobody's going to want to watch it. And the first one, it comes on New Year's Day. It's not a New Year's Six. It's the Citrus Bowl. Michigan is going to get obliterated because they have to play Alabama.
Oh, boy.
And Alabama is pissed.
Well, at the same time, you don't know. For Alabama, every season is championship or bust. So if they come in ranked where they 13th in the country, 12th in the country, something like that, it's a disappointing year. So are they going to come
It's the
out?
same thing. They're 13. They're 13.
Are they going to rest their starters and like guys who are going to the draft just say, I'm not going to play in the Citrus Bowl, I'm out?
It's the same
They
thing
gonna
as
get
what happened to
focused.
the UCF Auburn game.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
UCF won. Auburn was unbelievably not interested in that game
National
for the full
champs.
4 quarters, and they finally turned it on late and got it close. So
I understand that, but
no, but
are we
Nick
still-
Saban does not let his
are we
boys slip
still
like that.
are we still talking about the same Michigan team that beat Iowa 10-3, 10-3 in a college football game? Alabama's going to boat race them, but
I agree with you, honestly. I mean, Michigan, for all the hype that they get, everyone's like, oh, Jim Harbaugh is the best coach ever. And, listen, they're not all that.
Yeah.
Shea Harbaugh was supposed to be this big thing. He's been a mediocre quarterback at best. The surrounding offensive talent has not been able to thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in Atlanta last year
Yeah.
for the Gator-Michigan game.
Yeah.
And if Felipe Franks and that Gator team last year can completely steamroll Michigan, that's not a good sign. And it's going to happen against Alabama.
and Mac Jones, the quarterback now for Bama, he looked good against Auburn.
Hey, you put 45
Outside
on the road
of
against Auburn.
the 2 pick sixes he threw, he looked good. And you know that those receivers are going to play. Judy, Ruggs, Devonta Smith, those guys didn't even have a good day against Auburn. Jalen Waddle, who's their 4th receiver, had 4 touchdowns.
Ooh, man.
Alabama's going to boat race Michigan.
Do you
And it's
think-
gonna-
I also think, though, Saban's being attacked right now. He might want the win for himself. But yeah,
What do you
Jacob-
think Harbaugh's done when they get steamrolled by Bama?
No.
He's done.
There's
No,
not another
there's-
coach on the market
there's-
that even
who are they
compares
going
to the
who are they
recruiting, the
going to
name,
hire?
everything.
That'd be the thing. Who are they going to hire?
Well, no, I think Jim would leave. That's the thing. I
Yeah.
think Jim would go to the NFL, if anything. I don't
Jim-
think
I don't
Michigan
think
fires
Jim
him.
for
Harbaugh
the
comes to
NFL.
FAU and Glenn Spencer goes to Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
We'll do a trade.
Hey,
We'll
that's
trade.
the future of FAU.
Yeah,
man.
like-
Jim Harbaugh, man.
The other game that I was like kind of looking at, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be such a boring game. The Orange Bowl is Florida versus Virginia. And Florida's a really good team, and Virginia's surprised a lot of people. But man, that's going to be a boring game.
Like
I mean-
17-13 finish. Like
I mean, Florida's really talented, and that's a game that I'm going to watch because both those teams are talented. Bryce Perkins, the quarterback for Virginia, is an amazing dual threat quarterback. But man, watching Clemson 62-17 Virginia in the ACC title game, I was like, wait a minute, how did y'all even make it here? But I guess that's because they're playing Clemson. But that's just a game where I'm just like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to watch that, but I'm not gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at these matchups right now, man. LSU. So hold on, we got Penn State and Memphis. So interesting that ASC
could be fun.
is getting to play Penn State.
That could be
that's
fun.
interesting.
Memphis is going to be very competitive.
That'd be a fun game.
Right, and then we got Notre Dame and Iowa State. And is Notre
Iowa
Dame
State.
even ranked anymore?
Iowa State.
Notre Dame, I think, is Notre Dame ranked?
Are they 24
I don't
or are they not ranked?
No, 24 is Virginia.
Oh,
Sort is wow. If Notre Dame fell out of the rankings this year, that's pretty pathetic. And you know
Minnesota-
what? Their head coach should leave. What's his name again?
Brian Kelly?
Brian
They're
Kelly's
talking
gotta
about
go.
Urban Meyer going
We'll
to Notre
take him.
Dame.
Yeah.
That'd be wild.
I think Brian Kelly goes to Cleveland. He's been swirling around with Cleveland for a while.
That'd be interesting, man.
Cleveland.
Someone needs to go to Cleveland.
The only type of coach that's going to save Cleveland is like a Sean McVay type coach that can get the absolute most out of that offense because the defense.
Yeah,
I
'cause
actually really
Odell's
like
gone.
the defense. The defense is fine, but they need a guy that's completely offensive minded that can work with Baker in that offense. Because
Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln
Hey,
Riley is
he was
going to pull
Baker
his Stoops.
Mayfield's
He's
coach.
staying.
I mean,
Lincoln
it could-
Riley's
it could
staying at
work.
Oklahoma for a very long time and creating his own legacy there.
We also have Minnesota, Auburn,
That could be
Oregon,
fun.
Wisconsin, Georgia, Baylor. So those are some
That could be
pretty fun
fun.
games as well.
Minnesota Auburn could be real fun. That's the one I was like, wow, that could be interesting because Auburn, for what it's worth, they're losing their offensive coordinator to Florida State. Just like Memphis, their head coach Mike Norvell is the new coach of Florida State, so he's not going to coach the bowl game. But it's going to be fun to see Auburn's defense go up against Michigan's defense. It's going to be a fun one. I'm excited for these bowl games.
Auburn's
Defense compared to Minnesota's defense, which is one of the
Minnesota.
top,
Okay.
was one of the
At least
tops in the
Michigan.
Big Ten. It's going to be a fun one. But yeah,
Agreed. So now we're going to move into the National Football League, which had a great weekend of action this week. A lot of unexpected games, honestly. This was probably my worst week of predicting games all year. So let's go through them. We got Thursday Night Football. The Chicago Bears beat the Dallas Cowboys. My Philadelphia Eagles NFC East prediction is still alive. I'm not taking any pride in that because both teams are pretty horrible with the Cowboys and the Eagles. So, look, Dallas is in a tough spot right now. Obviously, everyone's saying, fire Jason Garrett, fire Jason Garrett. I also want to fire Jason Garrett, but I also understand Jerry Jones's argument. You know, he doesn't want to fire a coach in season, and he's also brought up the point, you know, who are we going to replace him with? You know, the Cowboys don't have an assistant that can just replace Jason Garrett and go into the playoffs. So Garrett's done after the season. So, you know, that argument kind of, you know, it's eventually going to end with Garrett being fired at the end of the year. But in terms of the Cowboys, man, they got the talent. Garrett's gotten everything he's asked for. Defense, offensive line, quarterback, running back. He's asked for everything, and they still can't win. Why is that?
it's simply because of coaching. I mean, to have a defense as talented as Dallas, yet to give up 31 points to the Chicago Bears.
And Trubisky, who
And
can't
Trubisky,
do anything.
Trubisky had he ran for a touchdown.
God, man.
Dallas
I
has
mean,
so
Mitch
much.
Trubisky.
They have so much talent, but it comes down to coaching. It's not like the players are giving up on them. I just think they're not putting their players in the right place to succeed. But where I will say they're lacking talent is they are lacking talent in the back half of that defense. At safety and at the opposite corner, opposite Byron Jones, they're not very good. So they're going to definitely be looking at a safety or a corner in this upcoming draft and a free agency because that needs to be addressed quickly.
Absolutely. So when we move on here, I'm going to just go through some of these games a little bit quickly. The Packers barely beat Washington 20-15. I'm telling you, I'm looking at that NFC North. I like Minnesota better than Green Bay if they face each other. I mean, and they face each other again, I think, later this year, I believe.
The O-line, the O-line for the Packers is definitely the worst. It's kind of funny. Rodgers and Brady are going through the exact same little issues right now. It's just Rodgers is much better than Tom Brady at the moment.
Yeah, talent-wise, yeah.
And they have more talent on the
They
Packers.
do have more talent
Yeah.
on the roster, but
Devontae
just
Adams is better than anyone on
there's
New
a
England,
huge
so.
gap there. There's
Yeah.
sometimes you watch Tom Brady throw a ball in a clean pocket and just the ball deflates in the air completely. But they both have offensive lines that are just they're getting hit after every other play. They're always on their butt after every single play, and it really takes a toll on these guys. I mean, I don't know how old's Rodgers. He's what 35.
He's in his mid-30s now, probably 34, 35.
34, 35. So, you know, I don't know. I don't really like to bet against Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs if they were to meet, and I don't like to bet for Kirk Cousins in the playoffs.
I don't want to do that.
But I will say I
don't
agree.
like it for Minnesota,
as a team, as a collective team, the Vikings look better.
I would say the Packers are still the better team, and the reason I say that is because if you look at the last game the Vikings played, which was against the Seahawks on Monday night, their back half of the defense, that secondary is awful. Xavier Rhodes was good, but he's gotten old, and there have been a lot of miscommunications, but he's just gotten slow. And like you said, I trust Aaron Rodgers more in primetime situations than Kirk Cousins, who has gone 0-8 in his career on Monday night.
Oh man!
So
I can't blame him for that Seattle game though.
Yeah, that Seattle game, there was a lot of stuff that went wrong for Minnesota, but I think the Packers' biggest problem is their defense. That pass rush has looked good when healthy, but their secondary hasn't been making a lot of plays outside of Jair Alexander.
Yeah, Jair Alexander. Yep, you got
outside of that, they don't have a lot of playmakers. Their inside linebackers can't cover anybody, so they're bound to get exploited by teams like San Francisco, who run a lot of plays using their inside guys. So I'm going to take the Packers still in that division, but Minnesota is a very sneaky team.
Yeah, for sure. So what about? Yeah. So we have another game here to talk about. Broncos beat the Texans this weekend, 38-24. Drew Lock came into the league, did really well, and so Jacob, what are you going to say about this?
Yeah, Drew Lock. He was hurt at the beginning of the year, but the coaching staff was high on him the entire time, and he came in last week, I believe, and was just like he was solid. This week, he really turned it on. He looked like he could be an NFL starter for a long time. He really impressed me.
I mean, big body, big arm. I like it a lot.
If you're John Elway and Justin Herbert has an unreal bowl game, and Drew Lock sort of tails off just a little bit the rest of the year, are you drafting Justin Herbert? Because we all know John Elway is going to fall in love with 6'6", flow out the back of the helmet quarterback Justin Herbert that just guns the ball down the field.
I don't think they take a look at Justin Herbert. Now that they see what they have in Drew Lock.
Yeah, I agree.
Small sample size, though.
I think you take what your draft picks are. You take your picks and you surround Drew Lock with talent. The offensive line has been very good for the Broncos. You surround him with elite offensive linemen. You surround him with some talent at receiver, and you could have something building up. But
I agree with you, man. I mean, why waste picks on a quarterback?
I agree.
When you already have one?
I agree.
You know,
but Elway's quarterback hungry. They want to just get it set in stone so they can continue to build the rest of the team. But I agree. Let me ask you guys this: out of the two quarterbacks right now that have kind of just got on the scene, with the starting, and they were backups or injured up until a few weeks ago, who are you more sold on the small sample size, Drew Lock or Dwayne Haskins?
Okay,
gotta be Drew Lock.
I think I'm gonna go Drew Lock, but in defense of Dwayne, I've always been one defending Dwayne Haskins because I think he can be a very good player in the NFL. That Redskins team is abysmal from top to bottom.
Awful, man.
He has no protection on the offensive line. He has a good running back in Darius Geis, who just went out for the season with an MCL sprain. Terry McLaurin is the only receiving threat, and he's just not. I said it coming into the season. He's not ready to start yet. And what happened? He had to start immediately because they were tanking. So what they need to do is, and you can't really blame him because Alex Smith still wasn't ready. What I would have done was, if Alex Smith was ready, play Alex Smith, then let Dwayne Haskins learn behind Alex Smith and let him develop, take time this year and develop. Don't let him play. And then next year, put him in as the starter. It's like what the Chiefs did with Mahomes.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing about the Mahomes and Alex Smith situation out in Kansas City at the time was so beneficial for both parties because he was seeing a team that was going to be in the playoffs and win, and he saw what it took to win, and then come into a team the following year that was ready to roll right out the bat. A lot of these quarterbacks don't get it, and it goes back to, for me, a huge mistake by the Arizona Cardinals was drafting Josh Rosen. You miss out on a first-round talent on the other side of the ball defense, which they could have used yesterday against the Steelers.
Yeah,
an offensive lineman, and then just waited the following year.
Because Arizona, a lot of people don't know this. They actually have talent there.
They have a lot of talent.
It's
just
Arizona.
They've swung in that swinging and missing. Like if you look at the players that were drafted after Josh Rosen that are starters on teams, like for instance in that draft, T.J. Watt was drafted in that draft. You know, that's a difference maker.
He could have been in Arizona right now.
He'd be out in Arizona right now. So, yeah, I mean, the reason why I asked that is because Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert, because Joe Burrow is going to go one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even blame the Bengals for taking Chase Young because that guy is incredible, but Joe Burrow's most likely going to go number one.
Joe Burrow fell to the Giants. What would you say the Giants do?
The Giants are taking Chase Young.
They're going to take Chase Young regardless.
No, I'm saying if Chase Young gets taken by Cincinnati.
Okay,
they're taking Andrew Thomas.
They take Andrew Thomas. I think they trade back or they take Andrew Thomas.
Draft capital. I could see the Dolphins wanting to move up. They could literally trade with the Finns and get a third pick. They're set on Daniel Jones. But the reason why I was asking that is just because.
To answer your question, I would personally right now, even though he's struggling, I would take Haskins just because of his ability to run. I think in today's game you need to be a dual threat guy, and Haskins has been able to do that, and he's got a big arm. And he just doesn't have receivers to throw to.
Drew Lock is in the much better position right now just because the Broncos and John Elway are better at winning football than Washington Redskins. The Washington Redskins
over the
can't
course
figure
of history,
it out. But the reason why I was asking that is because a combination of Tua, Burrow, and Herbert will be available for these teams, and they have quarterbacks that are, like if I'm John Elway and Joe Burrow is sitting in, which is not going to happen, but if Joe Burrow was there, and even if Drew Lock lit it up the rest of the year, it's like hard to not just take Joe Burrow.
No, I agree with you.
Man. And the draft is going to be really interesting. But
again, I just think if Elway really sits down and thinks about it and says, you know what, this guy's got the tools. Let's just try and develop him and surround him with talent instead of trying to do what Arizona did and delaying yourself a year. But there's always defensive talent every year. It's not like you don't draft in the top 5 this year. You're never going to find an elite defensive talent again. They're going to. But one thing people forget, too, they still have Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, who might end up being 2 of the best defensive ends in football, one of the best duos. So something to look out for in Denver. Also in the NFL, the Tennessee Titans blew out the Raiders, so my Raiders prediction is over. So it's going to be probably between Tennessee and Pittsburgh for that final wild card spot. Pittsburgh did beat Arizona this weekend. Seattle lost to the Rams 28-12. So now that division, if the teams win out from here on out, it will come down to Week 17. And then we'll talk about the bigger games here, starting with the Bills and Ravens. The Ravens beat the Bills 24-17. I think Buffalo looked great in this game for a team that you're facing Lamar Jackson, who's lit up the league this year, and they held him to 24 points. So this is 2 weeks in a row that Lamar's been held to a reduced amount of points against better competition. I like Buffalo. I like Josh Allen. I think Allen's a work in progress for sure. The turnovers have been a little bit better for him this year. He hasn't thrown as many picks. I like his running ability. Devin Singletary from FAU has done an unbelievable job. I've been starting him on fantasy, man. He's been in my running back position all year. He's been great. But I like the receivers that they've set up there. John Brown, Cole Beasley.
That's
one thing that I was going to say is lacking. Like if that team had a playmaker that they could literally go for this draft coming up, like a CeeDee Lamb,
I think
Jerry
for the
Jeudy.
draft, I think for this year, I think they're going to lose playoff game number 1. They're not going to win a playoff game. But I would agree with you. The receiver is certainly a way to go. But, I mean, you look at Josh Allen with just this receiver talent. Who knows what he could do with someone else?
Their receiver talent, they have a bunch of number 2 guys. They have a bunch of slot guys. You need a guy on the outside, which is what they're severely lacking because Josh Allen, one of his best traits coming out of college, was throwing the deep ball. And you need somebody. You need an outside guy who can go get the deep ball, and that's what a guy like CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy. That's what they'll offer to him. I think Buffalo.
They won't even be anywhere near to
they won't,
the draft.
They won't be
either of those guys.
They won't be near. They won't be anywhere near.
Fortunately,
CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy, but they can get Ruggs. But the Buffalo Bills always seem somehow to lose in a good way. Like they make their losses look good. I mean, even week 3 against the Patriots, when
They
everybody
played
thought the
better
Patriots
than anyone had
were going to dominate, outside of the teams that actually beat New England, they put up a really good fight.
Well, they would have beaten New England. Josh Allen didn't play the last 2 quarters of the game.
But they've always lost really well, and that defense is going to be very formidable going into the playoffs. But that offense is lacking firepower.
What I got from that game was the Ravens really impressed me. They've won a game in every single way. They've blown people out. They've grinded games out. They've won low-scoring games. They've won high-scoring games. Their defense is a lot better than I thought they'd be at the beginning of the season. I wasn't a Lamar hater, but I was a Lamar doubter, and everyone knows that, yeah, he's probably going to win MVP this year, and well, I guess not even be close.
Yeah.
So the Ravens, in my opinion, are the favorite to win the AFC now. They are another level this year. I don't know who's going to beat them. I mean, if they go into Foxborough in the playoffs, that's going to be really tough.
That's the only game that I would caution. But now that New England lost a third game, it's going to go through Baltimore.
It's going to go through Baltimore. But yeah. I'm just here to warn you. They are going to execute Order 66. If you're a Star Wars fan, you understand that reference. And somehow, now that they have all the film, they have all the studying, they've seen what Baltimore and Houston and Kansas City can do to them with the personnel that they have. Bill Belichick is one of the best game planning coaches I've ever seen. So I'm not going to bet against the Patriots. And for some reason, I don't know why, because this is the least talented Patriots team I've ever seen. But I'm not going to doubt them yet.
I'm betting against them 10 times out of 10. I'm sorry. I can't do it anymore. Tom Brady doesn't throw a good ball anymore. He doesn't. He's the GOAT, and I'll say right now, he's the best quarterback to do it. He's insane. Bill Belichick, probably best head coach to do it when it's all said and done. This year, not their year to win. They're not making the Super Bowl, and even if they make it to the AFC Championship game, they're going to lose. That team is not built to win a game in which the other team can score over 22 points. You look at their games that they've played. Their defense hasn't given up 22 plus points to teams, and when they have, they've flat out lost and got blown out.
The New England offense is an issue too now. I mean, you look at this game, they only scored 16 points, and I'm aware that there were some blown calls by the refs that maybe the Patriots would have had more points, but still, the Chiefs' defense is bad, and they only scored 16 points. So to me, it's a question of, can you stop the mobile quarterbacks, which they've had trouble doing, and can you score yourself? I mean, they're struggling on both sides of the ball.
I've seen James White line up at X. You can't do that. You're not going to win against that.
Yeah,
and it's
James White and Sony Michel are the two most talented offensive guys.
Why even release Josh Gordon?
That was so ridiculous to me.
It was weird because Josh Gordon was always getting injured on the Patriots, so you had to cut your losses.
But still, now he's with Russell. He might face you in the Super Bowl with Russell Wilson.
But he was always getting injured on the Patriots, so I can explain. That's easy to see. But in this game against the Chiefs, they scored 16 points, and normally when the Patriots score 16 points, with that defense, you can win. It's not the matter of they only scored 16 points. It's how they went about scoring those points. It took trick plays, flea flickers, block punts, special teams. Having a bunch of emphasis, I saw a play where the Patriots literally rushed everybody to block the punter. There was nobody back to return the punt.
Yeah, I didn't understand that whatsoever. That ended up.
You know what that's saying to me?
Position.
That's saying to me, your team is not as talented offensively to keep up with these teams. So you need to get any advantage that you can, and that's where I'm like, this is the weakest Patriots team I've ever seen.
And the other thing is their O-line's not good enough. The Chiefs' D-line isn't that good. The Chiefs' linebacker group, not that good. They got to Tom Brady 3 out of every 4 times they blitzed.
And this
Tom Brady's
is the first
not mobile.
Year that Tom, Tom's always had this weird, force field around him to where he can't get sacked. This is the first year where he's getting hit. He's getting hit, and he's not able to move out of that pocket.
And he doesn't have anyone to throw it up to. There's no Gronk, and there's no Josh Gordon on playing
no
X.
Antonio
there's
Brown.
no Antonio Brown. There's no one that he can just chuck
Edelman,
it.
But Edelman's old.
But now
Edelman plays in the slot. He's not. You can't even throw it up down there. It's not even a 50-50 ball for him. He's too small.
But look, we're saying all this now. Just know when it comes down to the playoffs, they're going to be ready, and they're going to have a game plan. It's just whether that talent can execute the game plan.
I'm just thinking in my head right now, when we're doing our next show on January 13th, where will the Patriots be? I mean, they'll still be alive. Are you kidding me?
I'm not going to say they're going to the Super Bowl, but you can't. I'm not betting against them
Yeah.
right now.
Every time you count the Patriots done and you say it's not their year, they turn it on the next week or you wait to the playoffs and start blowing everyone out, and you're like, yeah, that's a Super Bowl team.
We're gonna get a vintage 400-yard performance from Tom Brady, and just telling everybody to shut up, and we're all gonna be back here January 13th looking like idiots because we chose against Tom Brady.
I don't think that team will score above 30 points in the playoffs, even if they get the chance.
Right.
I really believe that they won't. They may not even make it out of the divisional round if they play against if they play against the Bills, if they play against the Texans, whoever it might be in that first round. I still like the other team to at least keep it close.
If they run into Kansas City, I think they might lose.
I think they lose.
I think they beat Kansas City again.
Huh?
I think they beat Kansas City again because with all the weird stuff that happened in that game, Kansas City should have blown them out. With how talented that offense is.
I don't know, though. I think Mahomes in a playoff game, in a head-to-head matchup in a playoff game, plus, I don't know. I like
Was
Mahomes.
it in Gillette?
I just have a feeling that
it was in Gillette.
It was in Gillette.
And it's going to be in Gillette for the playoffs.
That's a tough place to play regardless.
Yeah,
I don't know. That defense is
don't
good,
know.
but the thing is regardless of all the things happening in the game, the Chiefs got it done. What was the final score?
It was like 23-16.
Okay.
I mean, the win's all that counts,
But that Chiefs D isn't good. That Chiefs D is not good. You're at home and you can only put up 16.
Well, I mean, listen, like JP said, it's hard to beat the Patriots twice. So
It's hard to beat them twice.
I think the Patriots would definitely beat Houston in a playoff game, like no doubt. I think they would beat Buffalo, beat the 6th seed.
The 6th seed right now is the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean they're beating.
Yeah,
Tennessee
they would
or
beat the Steelers.
Pittsburgh,
The Steelers,
whatever.
if they make it, are around
know?
one loss. But there are 3 losses. The Patriots' 3 losses this year
Yeah.
are to the 3 divisional champions or winners at the moment. The number 1 seeds from their division. Those are the top competition in the AFC. They're 0-3.
Yeah, I mean,
It's the same thing with Bama. Bama loses to Auburn and loses to LSU. They're two top teams that they absolutely had to beat this year. They're 0-2 in those games. There's a point where you got to stop glorifying them and make them out to what they are. They had a really weak schedule leading up to those games.
right. So I think what you're trying to say, CJ, I mean, there's image and then there's reality. We have this image of Tom, 5-time whatever Super Bowl champion, and you just assume, Patriots are going to do it again because they did it last year. In the AFC Championship game, D Ford stepped off sides, and there you go. New England's in the Super Bowl. So, people are like, they have that thought and process in their head like, don't count them out until they're out. So if we look at the games for this upcoming week in the NFL, there's really not that many competitive games. I mean, the schedule's pretty bad for this week, but one of the more important games, Houston and Tennessee, they face each other twice in the next 3 weeks. This is going to determine the AFC South and the 6th seed, and then we have Bills-Steelers for Sunday night, which is also going to impact the wild card race as well.
As an AFC South team fan, and I'm dead inside, but we don't need to bring that team up. The AFC South,
Jags fan, guys.
The AFC South is weird, man. You can't trust a team from the AFC South. First, with Houston, you can't trust them. You can't trust anybody from the AFC South. I don't think Tennessee's offensive outbursts, wherever it's coming from with
Please
Tannehill.
don't give me Ryan Tannehill.
I don't think.
Come on.
Back.
I don't think.
I don't know what it is.
I don't
but he's
think.
turned it on.
I don't think that's sustainable.
No.
I think he's benefited from playing the Jaguars, the Raiders, from playing the Chiefs defense.
Well, Derrick Henry's been going.
Derrick Henry's
Derrick
a
Henry's
monster.
been beast, man.
But I just don't think that offense is sustainable. And with Houston, you don't know what you're going to get from Houston. One game, you're going to get the team that beat New England at home, and then the next week, be down at 1 point, 35-3 to Denver. You just don't know. And especially with Deshaun Watson and that offense, you have to protect Deshaun Watson. That's something that they did not do against Denver, and you saw what happened. So right now, I really don't want to do this. I really don't. But I think I'm going to take Tennessee in this division.
Oh, no.
I hate the Tennessee Titans as a Jaguars fan, and it's paining me inside to say this.
JP, you're the same person who's called the Tennessee Titans the Tampa Bay Rays of the NFL.
They are the Tampa Bay Rays of the NFL because every year, no matter who they get, they're always going to be 9-7 or 8-8 and scrape by in the playoffs.
It's a great analogy. I've always loved that analogy.
Most people don't know this, but I did live right outside Nashville for a very long time, and the Titans were my second favorite team. And since the Bucks are my first favorite team, I watch the Titans more
man.
now.
Oh,
And
well, no, you know what? Jameis, the Bucks aren't.
we're
The
doing
Bucks
this now?
are
Okay.
the Bucks are the weirdest team in the NFL, and Jameis is the weirdest quarterback in the NFL.
He's the worst quarterback in
He's
the
not the
NFL.
worst.
He will have like 400 yards, but also have 4 interceptions and 2 fumbles and still lose the game.
and 5 touchdowns,
I-
and
and
they'll win
five
the game.
touchdowns.
I
It's
lived in
insane
Tampa.
stat line.
I still do. I mean, the people in Tampa do not like Jameis. I don't think I've met a Jameis Winston person in years.
That isn't
Well,
delusional.
that-
The thing about here's like we're talking about the Tennessee Titans and the Buccaneers. Here's what the Tennessee Titans have that the Buccaneers don't. They have a quarterback that's not going to turn the ball over. Ryan Tannehill doesn't turn the ball over. You're not going to win because of Ryan Tannehill, but you can win with Ryan Tannehill.
He's
Yeah.
similar to
You
Alex
cannot
Smith in a way
win.
where he won't make huge mistakes,
He won't make
but he
you-
won't make big plays.
He's not gonna. You're not gonna win with Ryan Tannehill carrying you. That's what Derrick Henry's for.
Like
But you're going to win with him. With the Bucks, it's like I heard this analogy on TV or on Twitter, I believe. With the Bucks, it's like playing Russian roulette. You don't know whether you're going to get a bullet to the head and Jameis is going to throw 4 interceptions and lose to Carolina in London, or you're going to get a blank and James is going to throw for 5 touchdowns and they're going to win the game.
you're
The
gonna
perfect,
beat the Rams in Los
the
Angeles.
perfect summary of that is
forgot that was this
in
year.
this game they had against the Colts that they won. Jameis threw an 86-yard pick six.
And it was
The
bad.
the
It was
next
bad.
drive, 20-yard touchdown pass, perfect.
Most interesting quarterback in the NFL.
And you
that's
know
for
what?
Sure.
I saw this stat. They actually sent it to me in a group chat that I'm in. And Jameis Winston this year, his stats are comparable to Peyton Manning in 2001 when he was with the Colts. They're both the same age. This season, they both had 26 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards, 23 interceptions.
Oh no.
Peyton Manning had 6 pick sixes to Jameis Winston's 5. They both had
Jameis
6
Winston
wins.
is better than Peyton Manning.
Confirmed.
There it is.
Put it in the books right now. He's better than Peyton Manning.
There we
but no.
go, man.
But Jameis, I would much rather have Jameis than Mariota because I think
I
there's.
agree.
I
Oh, God,
personally,
Mariota,
I
man.
think there's still something there with Jameis. You just have to. With Bruce Arians' offense, it requires a lot of post snap reads and a lot of post snap thinking. What you need to do, get the ball out quick to the playmakers, occasionally throw it deep.
If you really watch Jameis, he's a pure one-read quarterback. He has his one read. After that, he has no idea what to do anymore. It's why he scrambles, and it's honestly really funny to watch him scramble.
It's great.
When's
It's amazing.
Jameis-
I love
when's-
it.
When's Winston's contract up?
This season,
This
Okay,
season.
okay. So hear me out. The Dolphins don't take Tua at 4.
you can take Jameis.
He's not getting.
No. But the Dolphins say, you know what? It's too much of a risk. We're going to take Herbert, or it's too much of a risk, and we're going to take the cornerback from Ohio State, Jeff Okuda.
There's no
Oh,
way
there's
Miami-
So Tua falls.
Tua does not. Look,
Dude,
I'm
there is
looking-
a very high possibility that Tua
I'm
falls
looking at-
due to the injuries.
I'm looking at the draft order right now. He's not getting past 10. The Chargers pick at 10.
yeah, but where
Oh,
do the
they'll
Bucks pick?
draft
Where do the
Tua.
Bucks
The
pick?
Bucks pick at
Chargers would
16.
love Tua.
Yeah, we're like what 5 and 8 right now.
This-
Well,
6
one
and
thing
7.
about the Chargers guys to look out for, they're
we
going to a
won,
new
yeah.
stadium and they struggle with bringing people in. They need a star, so look for them to get
Look, I think
Tua, Cam Newton, someone of that
I
caliber.
think they're going to go after Tua in the draft if he falls.
There's
so
only a
high
few
risk.
teams. There's only a few teams in the top 10, and then after that, he's not going to get taken for a little while because teams already have quarterbacks.
Yeah,
But
I
that
mean,
is
you
the
could see someone
Dolphins.
trade up.
I don't know.
That's
if
the
he-
Dolphins,
I don't know
the
if he-
Chargers, and then after that,
The Panthers.
The Panthers.
I've also heard the Jags might be in the market to draft a
Yeah,
quarterback. This
I wouldn't mind that.
the Bucks need a quarterback.
But the problem with the Jags is a
The-
lot deeper
if
than
Tua
quarterback.
Tagovailoa is there for the Bucks to draft, they're drafting him.
oh, the
I
Bucks will get Tua in
strongly-
a heartbeat. Yeah,
Bruce Arians, our head coach, and Jason Light, our GM, are basically looking for any reason to sign Jameis to another contract. And if you look at the numbers, it makes sense to a degree. He has had like how many passing yards?
He has 4,131.
That's insane.
That's
His
second in the
touchdowns-
NFL.
Yeah, that's insane.
And he's second in the NFL in touchdowns.
And
It's
I think
beautiful,
He's
man.
leading the NFL in interceptions, correct?
It's beautiful. He's on
Like-
pace for like 32 touchdowns, 29 interceptions, and almost 5,000 passing yards. It's amazing.
So
I love
weird.
it so
It's
not
just
much.
Like,
make
how
the
do you
playoffs.
value that? You know,
I
And
love it so
people
much.
also don't always respect how many times he fumbles the ball. He's good for at least one fumble a game. At least. It's insane.
you know one thing too. You know, the Bucks have offensive talent that a lot of teams would kill for. I mean, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin are two of the best receivers in the NFL, and Jameis hasn't done anything with them.
Well, they
He's done
put
a
up a
lot
lot
with
of
them.
they
They
put
just
up a
don't
lot
win.
of points. They put up a lot of points. Their defense is not good.
Defense
They're
is
not
very
very.
bad.
They're not
Very
very
bad.
good.
Yeah, they
Although
haven't had a
Shaq
secondary
Barrett,
in, like,
Shaq
10
Barrett,
years.
defensive player of the year, he should be. He's leading the
Devin
NFL in
White's
sacks.
also good.
Devin White is really good,
JPP's
but
good.
but their
It's the
DBs,
secondary. They get chewed up
their
in the
secondary
they-
is
And here's what's
It's been
going to
like
happen.
horrible.
5
years,
years
and
now.
they
The
haven't fixed
secondary
it.
being atrocious, and
It's
they have
horrible.
yet to fix
Well,
it.
they
I don't
they
understand.
drafted
You know-
a bust in Vernon Hargreaves, and they
Yes.
cut him. And what's going to happen is they're going to draft another Florida cornerback,
Yep.
C.J. Henderson this
he's
year.
not going to the second round.
Ooh, I think he's a first round
you know,
take
pick.
him anyways
one
in the
thing
first
that
round.
boggled me a few years ago was when they signed JPP, but then drafted Vita Vea. I was like, what are you doing? You
Well,
have three guys in your defensive line. Just
Vita
get a
Vea
corner.
is more of an interior defensive line. He's a big run stuffer. He's a run stopper. JPP plays on the edge. He's the pass rusher along with Shaq Barrett. So that kind of fits. Where I was when we were talking about Vernon Hargreaves, I liked Vernon Hargreaves coming out of college, but he's undersized. So I think
You drafted a linebacker last draft, right?
Devin White,
Devin
who
White's
is
very good.
really
Been
good.
very good.
Devin White, Levante
your first
David,
two picks,
they got
your first
they
two
got
picks,
guys.
Your literal first two picks should be a cornerback and a safety.
Well, they've drafted plenty of them. They just are always busts.
look.
Always busts.
Need to go after Christian Fulton, the corner
Yes.
from LSU.
Or a Delpit.
Delpit the safety. You just need to draft LSU guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now let's talk about the NBA. Tyler Hero last night, guys. He went off for the Heat against the Chicago Bulls last night. Bunch of threes. Looks like the next Klay Thompson, honestly. I mean,
He's sick.
he's sick.
Walking buckets.
I mean, you look at this Heat roster, they can go toe-to-toe with some of these teams in the East. You got Bam, you got Jimmy Butler, you got Dragic, you got Kendrick Nunn.
You got Justice.
They can
Justice
go toe to toe
Winslow.
in a
I mean,
series against any of those guys. in all
And let me
honesty.
ask you guys, because you guys are Heat fans, and I'm not going to publicly speak who my team is because I don't like saying it, but look at the Heat, man. I saw a trade rumor. They might try to get either DeMar DeRozan or LaMarcus Aldridge from the Spurs. If I were them, I wouldn't go near DeMar because you're fine at shooting guard. I would maybe try and go after Aldridge.
Don't go after Aldridge.
I think
He's-
they've got something
he's-
good going on. With
He's
the,
a black hole at power forward. He
Yeah,
gets
but
the
he
ball
makes all-star
and he
teams.
shoots the mid-range jumper, but he can't play defense, and he's also old. I don't
Yeah.
think they go after either of them. I think they save their money and their cap space for actually a couple of other guys they could trade for. Blake Griffin or Kevin Love.
And if
Kevin
they could
Love-
land one of those two,
Kevin
man,
Love wants to be traded to a title contender. He can go to the Heat, and he can immediately challenge for a title.
Dude,
That-
they're
that's a
never.
big
They don't
three
want
right there.
to.
Jimmy Butler, Bam, and Kevin Love / Blake Griffin. That's a
It's-
big three.
For them right now, it's not about the big names.
It's
per
about
se.
the
It's
team.
about
It's about
the young core that they have and contracts. They had some pretty awful contracts on the books over the years, and they finally are out of that black hole.
Hashtag Whiteside.
And Whiteside, Bosch unfortunately couldn't live up to his contract because he couldn't play due to health reasons. But that was a contract; they were still dishing out money to him. They finally have a young core of guys, and they're not paying much right now. They have Jimmy Butler on the max, but that's only one player. I don't see them making a huge deal like that because if you're going to acquire one of those players,
You gotta give up your
you're
youth.
going to have to give up somebody that they who would they give up? I can
They
see
would
them
give up.
getting.
It would be like
They would give up
Winslow.
Winslow,
Right.
Olynyk, and a pick.
See,
That's
I
the
don't-
perfect thing.
It's like-
I don't even want to give up
Right.
Justice Winslow. There's no
I
point
mean,
in
for
that
Blake
regard.
Griffin though, for
For
Blake Griffin,
Blake Griffin or Kevin Love?
I mean, you get Kevin Love, he might stay
That's a-
here on a contract too.
But
I
what
don't know.
what I will say is
I think
how
Kevin Love's done.
how this Heat team is how it's constructed. I don't think they're making it to the finals. I think
Well,
they can.
no,
Not this year.
Not this
not
year.
this
Not
year.
this
They're
year.
going to develop into that.
I think Milwaukee still is going to come out the East because they have the best player.
20-3.
They have the best player in the Eastern Conference, and when it comes down to the playoffs, you need your best player to be better than everybody else on the court, and that's what Giannis is going to do.
Yep.
But this Heat team is really fun to watch. I think they're one move away. But how it's constructed right now, it's a really fun team to watch. I really like where it's going. And right now we're number 3. We're a number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, and I think that's sustainable.
Yeah, I think you guys are going to stay there. I mean, you look at the other teams in the East. Pacers. I don't think they'll have enough time with Oladipo to make up ground. The Raptors, really, they're not a top team this year. So to me, other than Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Miami, no one else, pops out to me in the East. But as far as the West goes, the Lakers are running through people right now. LeBron James and Anthony Davis are incredible. I mean, it seems like every night you see Anthony Davis, 30 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and LeBron gets 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 18 assists. I mean, these guys are absolutely incredible. They've revitalized Kentavious Caldwell-Pope into actually being useful. Caruso remarkably has continued to play well. They have said also that they might be able to get DeMarcus Cousins to come back for the playoffs if he heals that Achilles in time. But, I mean, I'm looking at the West. The one team that I'm saying is a wild card, Portland. They are in the Kevin Love rumors. If they can get Kevin Love with C.J. and Dame, I don't know, man. Maybe they can win some games. And Carmelo, the way he's been
I
playing.
think they're just swinging. I think they're swinging for the fences at this point. They're just looking for big names. I don't even think Whiteside was that good of a fit over there, and I don't know. I don't see a team saying, I need Kevin Love. He's going to be the X factor now. I don't see it happening.
Maybe.
I don't even know what his contract is over in Cleveland. It might be a terrible contract.
It probably is. I think he's in his last year, though, so he would just hit free agency after this. But that's how the NBA is going right now. Kind of in the dead season where we're waiting for trade deadline time around February. That's kind of when the NBA picks up a little bit more around All-Star time as well. So now let's shift into our last topic of the day. We're going to talk about baseball. So earlier today, the Washington Nationals re-signed Steven Strasburg to a 7-year, $245 million contract. That is the most expensive contract ever given to a pitcher. In terms of total value and average annual, he's getting $35 million per year. Most people now believing that Garrett Cole will probably receive more of a term and more overall and average money than that. So you're looking at probably $36 to $40 million per year for Garrett Cole, which is incomprehensible. The Los Angeles Angels and the New York Yankees are the top two teams going for Garrett Cole at the moment. There have been rumors out there, not just rumors, but it's almost been confirmed that the New York Yankees and Brian Cashman have received full ownership approval of being able to throw out any contract that they want at Garrett Cole. So when the Yankees are out there publicly saying that they will bid anything for a player, there's no stopping the New York Yankees. They're most likely going to get Garrett Cole. And as a Yankee fan, that warms my heart. We'll probably win a World Series. It will happen. I know I have two Rays fans giving me bitter looks right now, but
I hate them.
Thank you. I love hearing it, man. We're going to win 28 this year, but listen, Garrett Cole, one of the top free agent pitchers. The only thing that concerns me, and this is for any big contract, but especially with pitchers, you're having this guy now for 7-8 years, paying him probably $36 to $40 million. You got to pay Aaron Judge eventually. You got to pay Gary Sanchez eventually. You got to pay Gleyber Torres eventually. Where does that money come from? If the Yankees are still concerned with staying around that $189 million luxury tax, are they really going to want to pay Garrett Cole $40 million? I mean, if you're going to pay anyone $40 million a year, pay Garrett Cole $40 million. He's the best pitcher in baseball, undeniably. So that's how I look at that race right now. But if you look at the Nationals, good for them being able to re-sign Steven Strasburg to a contract. They had that choice, either Rendon or Strasburg, and they picked Strasburg. So, CJ, you wanted to add something here?
So, my friend Jake Lee, who's currently listening to the show, says that the Yankees need to offer him more money, and if they miss out on Garrett Cole, they need to go after Madison Bumgarner.
No.
Just just tell me your thoughts.
No.
Okay, first of all, Madison Bumgarner is how many years past his prime? 4 or 5 years? I mean, you're talking 2014 is the last time that Madison Bumgarner was at the top of the league. Since then, he's dealt with injury problems and consistency problems. And to give a guy in his mid-30s over $100 million for 5 years is I mean, I can't even wrap. If the Yankees end up signing Bumgarner, man, I will be angry. That would anger me if the Yankees went after Bumgarner. Not a bad idea for some other teams. I mean, look at Philadelphia. That would be a perfect fit in my mind. Philly, Minnesota needs a starting pitcher. They're in contention. I think the White Sox. But the Yankees, man, I don't see them going for Bumgarner. 5 years at this age with over $100 million? Come on, man. If you were going to go over $100 million for someone other than Cole, it would have been Zach Wheeler. And he went to the Phillies already. So that's where I stand on that. Not a bad idea for other teams, but not for the Yankees, man. So what are your thoughts, Jacob, on where – so we'll get into other teams other than free agency. I know we have two Rays fans sitting in here. What are your thoughts on the Tommy Pham trade to San Diego, I think a week ago now?
Yeah, we got Hunter Renfroe, another prospect from the Padres. When it comes to the Rays, I 100% trust their front office, and I 100% trust the scouts.
Tell me about it, man.
So, Pham was a huge part of our team last year, but something we were really missing last year was some serious bats, and Hunter Renfroe is a big bat with some good power hitting to him. And I'm sure the prospect they got can play for I don't remember his name off the top of my head. But
yeah, you guys got a prospect, one of their higher prospects. I think he's a shortstop, second baseman type guy.
Yeah.
But so, I think the main thing here, I mean, Hunter Renfroe, is a decent bat. I mean, he had a pretty bad year in terms of average and on base. Year before that, not as bad. But, I think if you're looking at Pham for Renfroe, that's a downgrade. Just in the total package, Pham gets on base unlike anyone else. He steals bases. So if I'm looking at Renfroe, he's kind of a guy, homer or nothing. But if I look at the rest of the Rays, man, you got a lot of players that can kind of contribute. They as a group, they kind of link up and win. Mike Brasso, Brandon Lau, G-Man Choi, Willie Adames, Austin Meadows, man, he's the stud of your team.
Yeah,
amazing player. Kevin Kiermaier, I think, is the most overrated player in baseball.
Good fielder.
Gold Glove.
Good fielder.
But he can't hit, man. He
Gold
can't
Glove.
hit.
Gold Glove.
Like
Who cares?
Usually, so it's fine.
If you're a Gold Glover, but play on the bench and bring him in the ninth inning. He can't hit. And I don't know if you guys noticed this watching Rays games. He makes unnecessary dives and jumps.
Yeah, he does, but it looks cool.
It looks so cool, man. It looks so cool.
He gets on top 10.
If it gets on the top
Rays,
10, it's so cool.
My
it
God,
is
man.
so cool.
Jumping does not put it in the top 10.
I mean,
it does sometimes.
When he jumps and it connects, it's really cool.
I mean, it just drives me crazy. I mean, every time I go to Tropicana Field, my one yearly trip to that piece of crud
best
dome.
ballpark in MLB.
Too bad nobody shows up.
Go to Yankee Stadium. It's a much better stadium.
Great home atmosphere.
Standing room only.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was our baseball talk today. Hopefully the next time we come on here, Garrett Cole is in pinstripes.
Oh, God.
If not, he'll be in Angels Town with Mike Trout and the best player in baseball. But another thing, and this is my last comment on Garrett Cole. Jeff Passan of ESPN said there's two things that Garrett Cole wants. He wants to win, and he wants to go to the place with the most money. Well, he ain't going to win right away with the Angels. You got Trout, but they need a third baseman, a second baseman, a first baseman, a catcher, and a right fielder.
Well, as we saw at the last MLB playoffs, I mean, as long as you make the dance, anything can happen. I didn't think the Nationals were going to win. You don't think the Angels would make the dance with Garrett Cole? And
I think they'd win their division.
I think that they would win their division.
Are they in the same division as Houston?
Yeah, they're not beating Houston.
They're not beating Houston.
We don't know what's going to happen with
Houston. If you
Houston.
look at the wild card, they'd be there with the Rays, the Red Sox. Maybe it depends on what they do, and then probably Cleveland will still be in there, and then maybe the White Sox. But I don't see the Angels getting there. All you'd have is Cole and Trout.
The AL is stacked now. It's almost like the NBA with the East and West, how it used to be. Like the AL is, I don't know how the Nationals honestly won the World Series, but
pitching.
The AL is stacked from top to bottom almost, aside from the Orioles and a few other teams. But like the wild card race this year was insane for the Rays, and our reward was to play the Astros. So hopefully they can have a better playoff system going forward, so it's not two AL East teams aside from the Red. It's usually like the Rays, Yankees, and Red Sox competing for like the 3 playoff spots are available, and then there's someone in the West that can compete too. So hopefully they can have a better system, so the Rays don't have to play against the 2 richest teams in baseball anymore.
Oh God, please.
Well, they'd have to win the division to do that probably, and I don't think they're winning the division over the Yankees. Bias aside, I mean, the Yankees probably have this division on lock if they get Cole for like the next 5-6 years, and but I do like Toronto in the future as well to compete in that AL East, but Yankees are gonna have it on lock for 5 or 6 years if they get Cole. Even if they don't get Cole, they just have the ability to win more than Tampa does.
If they don't have injuries as they did this year, they'll definitely win it again.
For sure. So I think we covered all the bases today, guys. We talked about FAU. We talked about Lane Kiffin leaving, why he left, discussing potential returns for who the next coach will be. But let's end the show with this. CJ, give me your score prediction for the SMU-FAU bowl game.
Oof.
On the spot.
I'm never going to say FAU is not going to win, so I'll go FAU 48, SMU 44.
Wow, very high-scoring game, and two teams that are good at turnovers. JP, you got a score?
I'm going FAU 48, SMU 45.
Okay, so very close there.
I'm going to believe in our defense on the 21st. I think it's going to be 42-28.
Wow.
Interesting.
I would love that.
Interesting. So that's it for the show today. It was great, guys. We talked FAU football, NFL, NBA, baseball. So this is the last show before winter break, as the FAU facilities will be closed until we come back for second semester. I'm planning on having the show on Monday, January 13th, which is the day of the national championship in college football. So that will be an amazing day to come back. After that, the show will either be airing every Monday from 4 to 5 or probably every Tuesday or Thursday. We're going to have to check schedules and see what we're going to do consistently during second semester. But I'd like to thank everyone who has built up a viewership for this show. We started in the middle of first semester, and we pumped out 5 episodes here, and we've had a ton of people watch. Please follow the YouTube channel, or I shouldn't say follow, but subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just look up Strictly Sports with Jacob Browne in the search bar. It'll be the first result there. You can also follow us on Twitter at Strict Sports FAU, where we will provide updates on the show when we're coming back, stuff like that. And we're always tweeting on there about in-game updates, having some fun banter on there. So we will be back Monday, January 13th for JP, CJ, and the other Jacob. I am Jacob Browne, and we will see you next time.